Welcome to PM Express Business Edition. It has been going up consistently in recent times due to development on the international market. Well, I'm talking about fuel prices. But is there a way out in slowing down the pace of increment? Is it the city's stability or the removal of taxes could be the solution to this challenge? Or maybe switching to electronic cars? Well, I'll be engaging Abbas Ibrahim. He is head of pricing at the National Petroleum Authority. Senior Hossi is chief executive of the Chamber of Bulk Oil Distributors, and Dan Kanama is executive secretary of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers. These guests will be my guests tonight on PM Express Business Edition as we look at petroleum prices, the way out, solutions, and the way forward. My name is Georgia. If we take a break, I'll be right back. Welcome to PM Express Business Edition. Today we are talking about fuel prices. We've seen some consistent increment over the past few weeks. And how are things looking like, the way things are going? Are we going to ensure that things are going to work out well for us, or really expect some challenging times going forward? I'll be engaged in Senior Hossi. He is chief executive of the bulk oil distribution companies. Duncan Amoa is the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers, and Abbas Ibrahim, he is with head of pricing at the National Petroleum Authority. So let's get the ball rolling. And let me first start from the consumer's perspective, Duncan Amoa. I mean, as a consumer, would it be out of place to say, and first let me also congratulate you as well. We'll talk about the reasons of I mean,
George. Okay, you win.
As a consumer, these are not happy times for you, right?
I want to believe that the government itself will not be happy.
Well, they are not stepping in to intervene or subsidize.
They also consume. So if you have a fleet of government vehicles also drawing fuel, and you probably used to have 10 million budget, the moment it goes up by 12%, as I was coming, I was just calculating in my head what it means to the ordinary person.
What does it mean?
If your trotro would use 100 liters a day, or a bus would use 100 liters, it means that every single day you need to add 12 Ghana cedis to your average consumption. So if anybody sits anywhere and say, oh, we are comfortable with increases, I do not think that the responses would be a reflection of the reality. We are all not comfortable.
Isn't it more of the fact that there isn't an alternative? So therefore, it's more of an elastic commodity. You have no choice.
You see, that makes it even more deadly. Because you cannot go fill your car tank with, say, water or palm oil or some substitute. You are forced to buy the product. If you don't, your car won't move. If the car doesn't move, you can't go to work. So because it has no close substitute immediately, you are forced to buy it. And that is the only reason why we are paying 52 pesos at some pumps for an economy that probably is not paying us, those graduated increases in wages and income. So these are not very comfortable times.
Let me bring in those who distribute these products, the bulk distributors. Mr. Hossi, it's been quite a while. How have you been?
God has been kind. I'm in good health. I'm safe. My family is safe. So we thank God that we still have a Ghana.
From the perspective of the bulk distributors, how's the industry doing?
There are difficult times. We are very, very aware of what our role is. Our function affects everybody's life. Our effectiveness will really make sure that that Mokola woman can go there and earn an income and impact and manage her family. That Cocoa Seller can be there, you can be here, ambulance can save lives. So it's a very important job that we are privileged to have as a mechanism to serve our country. I mean, times like this, when prices take on more of a contango, you get a bit more concerned about the impact on the everyday citizen and consumer. And there are the reasons why we are in business. It's difficult, but there are very little things that can be done. Unfortunately, I don't think that our policymakers have been really committed to really deal with the issues of the impact of petroleum pricing. I've always said that we can do very little about petroleum prices because Ghana is always going to be a taker and not really a price maker. We don't produce much, we don't consume much. There's really almost very little you can do on that side. But what you can actually always do from a policy perspective is to actually drive interventions that can actually mitigate the impact of petroleum price increases. And it's been something I've been saying for years, but I think policymakers often like the easy way out and the quick way out. So I just hope one day we'll really look things more long-termish. I drive a V8. I drive a Mazda. I drive small cars and big cars, and it depends on how my pocket runs. I decide on what to move. All right. We need to give people options to manage the impact of petroleum prices. What investments have we done to significantly transform our mass transportation sector? I don't think we've done responsibly on that side. I don't know how much of rocket science it should be for us to realize that the investments we had spent on subsidies, investments that we are making out of income generated out of fuel could also possibly go into improving our rail system or actually really establishing a rail system. There's no reason why we shouldn't have a rail running through from Dodowa all the way to Accra, from Kaswa running through all the way to Tema, and another one running all the way through Circle to somewhere else, and create options for people. So when petroleum prices go up, the impact should be very minimal. We all go to London, and our big men do so. We all you find both the big men, everybody, all of us in the tube. You know, I've met MPs there. I've taken a ride with them. Even Churchill during the Second World War rode in the tube. You know, so why we wouldn't do this?
The
and
alternatives.
we all end up having this cyclical conversation. That's why you don't probably see me on petroleum prices anymore. It's
trying to run away
It's
from
taking so much for you to.
It's
taking so much social indebtedness to you.
I know, and I do appreciate that so much. But
it's becoming a very meaningless conversation.
We tried to make some progress on this one. Let me bring in Abbas Ibrahim. He is with the National Petroleum Authority in charge of pricing. And for you as the regulator, a lot of accusing fingers have been pointed at the regulator about not doing much, ensuring that the right policies work and all those things. What do you make of all these accusations in these times about not putting your feet down to ensure that at the end of the day the consumer is protected and all the players are doing the right things?
Thank you very much, George, and good evening to everyone.
I'm not saying containing the impact of prices.
Yeah, you can go ahead, please.
George, can you hear me, please?
I can hear you, Abbas.
So as a regulator, we are playing the role of a referee now. And you have the consumer seated by you and the supplier also seated by you. And our work as a regulator is to ensure that we protect the consumer whilst we also protect the petroleum service provider. So the assurance we have to give the consumer is that the supplier is not doing anything that's exploiting you, the consumer, whilst also ensuring that the petroleum service provider is also working in a sustainable environment to continue to supply the product. Remember that in order for us to talk about the product's price, the product must be available. So the needed investments, the needed costs that have to be incurred to make the product available, the costs have to be covered. So the regulator, we have to make sure that we ensure that everyone is playing by the rules. The consumer may not see everything that goes into the pricing, but that is why we are there. We have to give them the assurance that they are not being exploited and that the right things are being done. We continue to also advise government on some of the trends on the world market, and government by policy takes certain decisions based on that.
Abbas, let me get some clarity from you. As we speak right now, is government subsidizing any of the petroleum products?
So as you are aware, in July 2015, government took a decision to deregulate the pricing of almost all the petroleum products, with the exception of premix fuel and residual fuel oil. These two products are still subsidized by government. So apart from these two products, the petrol, the diesel, the LPG, which are the main products we consume, are not subsidized, and they've never been subsidized since July 2015.
You talk about July 2015, and one of the most critical things was this price deregulation policy. From the perspective of the regulator, do you think that this policy is still working? I'll be coming into also get a thought of my guesting, but from you as a regulator, do you think it is working?
Yes, so first of all, we would have to look at why was price regulation, the policy implemented, and what did it seek to achieve? First of all, if you remember, at the time the policy was introduced, one of the major objectives of the deregulation policy was to remove the subsidies on petroleum products so that the huge subsidy bill, which were mostly unpaid to the bulk distribution companies at the time, and which was leading to liquidity challenges for these bulk distribution companies and then affecting the banking sector, was also becoming a major problem for the country. Because as you are aware, governments never used to subsidize for subsidies. They never used to budget for subsidies, let me put it that way. And therefore, it was becoming an albatross on government's neck. That was the first policy, the first reason. The second reason was that it was also leading to exchange rate losses. And as you are aware, no one ever knows what the exchange rates will be tomorrow. So we continue to use exchange rates that we could not tell what they will be in a few days or few weeks to come. So as the pricing was ongoing, we could realize that there were always under recoveries being incurred because of the rapid depreciation of the exchange of the cedi. So this was also to be achieved. And secondly, we also saw that deregulation will bring competition on the market, whereby we will see competition driving down prices. So in our view, these three objectives of removing subsidies and therefore removing this huge government, the burden on government has been taken away, the under recoveries has been addressed. And also, we are seeing lower prices than they used to be. Let me give you a typical example. If the regulator was to be setting the prices today in July 2015, when government was controlling prices, for example, the premium the BDCs were using to set their prices at the time, which was regulated, was $112 per metric ton. As we speak today, because of competition, we are seeing BDCs pricing at a discount of about $30 for petrol, for example, and about just $6 for diesel. And clearly, you would know that if we were to be regulating from July 2015, when it was $112, you would know the BDCs would have always been coming to ask for increments in these premiums. Our competition has pushed them and forced them to be pricing based on what they can do. Some may be to their own disadvantage, but this is competition at play. And therefore, I would say that in that sense, consumers are enjoying from this kind of competition.
But some would say it's quite debatable. I'll be coming back to, let me get back to my studio. Senior Hosi.
I think you should ask Abbas if the MPA was setting prices today, what price will we be paying at the pump?
How come?
Abbas, I guess you heard me, so please go ahead.
The argument is that what would be the price right now if prices were being set by the regulator?
So like I just told you, $112 was what the BDCs were using to set their prices.
Tell us what the price will be.
I want to put it in context, just for you to understand, because just giving the number may not do the trick. So what I'm saying here is that if the consumer, if we were to still be regulating prices, we would have been using $112 to set the price. If we were to do that today, just as an example, we would have been paying about 7 cedis, 5 pesos per liter, if we were to use that $112. But currently, that is not what we are seeing because of competition. So just to prove that point again, that because of competition and price regulation, we are seeing lower prices on the market. We as a regulator know that the consumer may not know some of these technicalities. And that is the reason we've started doing more public education. We are engaging the public more and to bring more transparency to what goes into these prices for everyone to understand what exactly
I think there's another question we should be asking about. Since he mentioned the BDC. I think we should ask Abbas. I mean, from his own calculation, what is the net premium that BDCs are selling at? I mean, he mentioned 66 and then $30. The price build-up has a whole long chain. A lot of it are expenses determined by the MPA itself. So he should net it off and tell you how much BDC. No, just let him just tell you what the premium they had. This is a very simple thing, and you hear it himself. He's head of pricing. He will tell you. Abbas, can you tell everybody?
So I think I mentioned that in my when I was talking. I said that at the current prices BDCs are selling the products to the OMCs, you can see that they are using the negative premium instead of the $112, and that is because of
And that's a
competition. We
negative how
assume that
much?
$30 for petrol.
Meaning people are
Based
taking a
on
loss.
based
BDCs
on
are
the price
taking
they
a
are selling
loss
at. So,
of
like I was
$30
explaining,
as we
if we were
speak.
to be regulating, worst case, we would have still been using $100,
Okay.
which we were using
Okay.
about 6 years ago.
Okay.
But you know that wouldn't have been fixed.
Okay, Abbas, let me come in and I'll get back to so Senor, I mean, what is the situation now? It appears that everything is okay. Your debts have been cleared. Competition is forcing you guys to
not
drive prices
necessarily.
down. What is the situation?
What should make you realize? What you should realize is that we are building a new kind of problem. Prices are going up. You have a BDC market that's very sensitive to the entire public response on petroleum prices. Some people think they can take a hit temporarily and then probably recover in over another period.
Are you taking a hit?
They are taking a hit, and that's what you had, minus 30. So $30 per metric ton is the loss you are making on every transaction today.
Is that good? Because we thought that we're progressing. We're making.
So I tell you the risk.
Sorry, yeah.
All that's going to happen is that somebody is funding the BDC. It's either the bank or international supplier. We'll rob Peter to pay Paul, and at a point, BDCs cannot pay the banks. And when they cannot pay the banks, they get a big hit. And when the hit is too big, consumers who are depositing their money in the same banks will have problems. So we need to fix the industry. But all I really need us to understand under this current structure is that you don't have a BDC sector that is out there trying to take advantage of consumers.
Good point as well.
As we speak today, the reverse is rather true. That maybe the sensitivity of BDCs is rather making consumers take advantage of them. You are buying fuel today at what, 6.38, 6.5, and you can hear the regulator clearly telling you if they were fixing it, it would have been at 7.05. When I was at the fore, or the chamber was at the fore, advocating for deregulation, there was a lot of sensitivity. We had to get people, governments, to realize that the industry was already so competitive, it could only inure to the benefit of consumers. Deregulation has been great for consumers. The policy operatives and all of us and our management of it has been more irresponsible, and the impact somewhat has been a mutual loss on the economy and also on the state. And that we'll discuss another time when we delve into the implications and how all that have impacted the illegal trade, which has led to billions of cedis that...
I know you've been doing a lot of reports on that. But Senor, I thought that we made some progress on this. But what I get from you, listen, we are not out of the woods here because we are building up another debt, if I could use that.
Oh, we are.
And that is not good, Mr. Osi.
Well, it's not good, but you see, these are still conversations we are having with the regulator, so we can find ways to sanitize the industry. Because what is more dangerous is not a high price, it's the absence of the product. That is what is more dangerous. Because when the product is absent, that cocoa seller can't go and sell and feed her child. That ambulance can't move and save a life. All right? So we've been in this country before. We've seen it happen. The last time, somewhere in 2014, it wasn't a pleasant sight. It took a lot of work from some of us to really get things done. Unfortunately, politicians lied about how it was restored and were giving credit where credit was not due. You know, but that's the nature of this terrain. You always expose politicians and turn their breaches. But there were people who had to give up so much to try and help us recover. I mean, for instance, I had to miss my wife's graduation, my son's graduation, and spend weekends on the ground incentivizing people to really, you are aware, you were there. Only for government to come and say they release strategic stock. I said strategic air. They had no strategic stock. This country has practically had none for years or decades. So, you know, when people work right, give them the credit that's due. On this particular matter, if you remember that time, and if you remember what used to be in the 90s and what sometimes were in the 80s, it's not a good sight to actually choose lower prices over product availability.
But Senor, these are other people's money, some would say. You are not for that Christmas. These are money that you've taken from
actually your own deposits at the bank.
You know, and for me, I'm just saying that we are getting back gradually to that state that we all thought we had moved away. And that's where the concern is.
Yeah, that's why the regulator has to be a bit, has some work to do in trying to rationalize the viability and the sustainability of the industry. All right, and there's a lot of review that's going on, and I give a lot of credit to Mustafa Hamid. He's been very listening, and we're having more sessions in a few weeks, and we are hoping to actually have a session with the minister himself. So he actually hears from industry people, and let's fashion out how to build an industry that grows and is sustainable, and also does not abuse the consumer. And for me, it's more important.
Mr. Duncan, when you hear some of these challenges in the industry, do you still want to push, if I can use that expression, for reviewing the levies on this petroleum pricing build-up?
You see, all the discussion you've had with Abbas and my brother has been centered on ex-refinery. Yeah. It's one of the stages of pricing. After ex-refinery, you go to your taxes and levies, then you come to your ex-depot position. Then you add your margins and markup, come to what you pay at the pumps. I would be a very bad person to say that somebody is exploiting within the ex-refinery.
Do you still get the understanding as a consumer? Or listen, we have moved past that?
No, I do have a very firm understanding that at the ex-refinery position, things are what they are. They cannot go and buy for $100 and sell for $50. It won't make sense.
It doesn't.
That is not the focus of our chamber. It is not the discussion at all. The discussion is not in whether BDCs are ripping us off or they are not ripping us off. No. The discussion currently, right, is a certain trajectory we have seen since the beginning of the year. Prices have only gone up. What has been the response of, one, the policy space, two, the regulator, three, what has been the response of the market itself? Okay? The policy space has been very, very shambolic, if you ask me. You have a situation where in 2015, December 22nd, we went to Parliament to say, look, crude prices had tumbled to $28. Government in its budget then had projected to make a revenue of $54 from our crude exports. So government had gone in to say, look, crude has slumped to 28. So therefore, the trotro driver, the average person who was probably getting gains from the ex-refinery position because prices were dropping, I'm slotting in a tax called special petroleum tax of 46 pesos. So the policy space comes in with, an intervention because crude prices were lower. Fast forward to 2021. Your 2021 budget would have a certain projection, right, based on which revenues could be calculated. Government itself projects below $58 for our crude exports. As we speak today, crude has crossed 60. It's crossed 70. It was hovering within the 80s region. What has been the response of policy? The same special petroleum tax of 46 pesos that was introduced when crude was 30 or $28, for which government was losing revenue. Government said, if I could intervene and slot in something, at least I'll get some revenue to build your roads. Today, government of Ghana itself, as of this morning, through Bank of Ghana, is telling all of us that it has made in excess of $89 million due to these price hikes on the international markets, the crude price increases. 89 extra million dollars is what has accrued to government. Yet, the ordinary Ghanaian is burdened with 46 pesos every liter, as though we were still in the same regime when crude prices were 30.
So for you, there is no justification for some of the levies on these products?
It cannot be justified with any stretch of anybody's imagination. This has got to go. Special petroleum tax. If you took this out, immediately fuel prices at the pumps will come down by at least 2 cedis, 7 pesos per gallon.
But Mr. Hossi, I mean, for you, some have said that the industry is suffering, the economy is suffering, so some of these levies are needed. For you, is it about, it doesn't really matter, or it's about ensuring that when you bring the products, the right price is paid? That is what you...
what our primary role is to ensure sustainable supply. That's our primary role. But I can identify with some of Duncan's concern. But we have a very difficult fiscal space.
Yeah.
Certain things become a bit inevitable. But to be honest, our price build has a lot of inefficiencies that consumers are paying for. I mean, honestly, there's also possibly a need for a certain kind of balance.
Yeah.
But there's a budget. I fix crude prices at X. So I expect that I'll make income of Y. When prices go up, we import finished product, we export crude. Prices will get hit on the pump, but you have challenges. You make a windfall on the upside. You can always have a margin account to find a good clearance and mitigate and moderate prices with a certain ratio.
You think that we should be doing?
I think it's fair. I mean, that's my honest economic policy position. There are things you look in the price build-up. There are things that, Duncan, it's impossible to touch.
Like?
You can't touch any of the energy. You can't touch the energy debt recovery levy, because that's what's being used currently to fund a lot of the energy sector debt. But you have a problem there. Are we going to have that in perpetuity?
No.
Are we creating a lot more liability unnecessarily?
We still have the toll recovery debt, right?
It's one of the.
I'll come to Abbas.
No, one of the things you just can't understand, but that tells you something about our economic policy making. You know, sometimes it's not as thorough as I think it can be. I mean, it's obvious as it can be. Toll debt recovery levy came in at a time that Tor had an exposure of about 400 million.
Yes.
The truth is, since Kufuor's time, or 2004 or so when he was done, we've collected billions, but that debt only was growing. It is the only debt that was so magical that the more you paid, the more it grew. So you don't know whether when you are paying to add to debt or you're actually paying to reduce debt. Till they came up with a bond mechanism to reduce a part of the debt.
Yeah.
But it means that you just shifted. It's a balance. It's a balance sheet adjustment thing. You move it from one person's balance sheet to the central government's balance sheet. Then they pay it over time. Okay. So there's honestly, you look at something like the boss levy, has never made sense in contemporary.
They're asking for a review.
They've actually taken. No, I'm going to take an increment. I'll just tell you, we have $9, 9 pesos, 40 million a month, possibly about 480 to 500 million cedis that BOSS is supposed to accrue. What is BOSS today? BOSS is a semi-trading entity, it's a storage entity, it's a pipeline entity. For its storage services, it charges the highest. It's supposed to operate as a commercial one. Because remember, BOSS is a limited liability company.
Yeah.
All right? 2, its pipeline services, it has a pure monopoly. We have to pay them and they charge for it. All right? Its trading services, when it runs its trading services, it also does its trading to make an income. I think recently we were boasting about the fact that they were making, but at the same time, Wadaku said the same thing, and eventually, what did we see? We saw a 600 and something million trade loss. But you still come back and look in the poor taxpayers' face. Collect 9 pesos from him. For what? It used to be very legitimate. Yes, because BOSS was not an active operating entity. Investments made in infrastructure. The BOSS margin is not for storage, strategic stocks, because we used to have a strategic stock levy, all right, which means zeroed out. The BOSS margin was for the maintenance of depots across the country. Maintenance. But the moment you start charging commercial rates for your services, inbuilt in it is your CAPEX recovery. Inbuilt in it is also your maintenance cost. And operation. What are you charging the people for? So you create a big bag where you can abuse, misuse, and also claim that you are making IGF, which is just purely taxing the consumer unfairly. The BDCs, who also run same services, actually run same services with zero incentive from the government, asking any margin or tax whatsoever. And guess what? Their rates are even lower than what BOST does. So what is the wisdom in some? There's a lot of inefficiencies. You look at the OMC margin. The OMC margin has been facing an upward pressure. But why again? How many OMCs do we have in the country? 200 and something. So if everybody is sitting here, the consumption pattern is largely, the market is largely defined.
Should we cap the number?
Look, we have to be responsible about what we mean by competition. Because when competition doesn't make sense, all you have is that the inefficiency in over-competition will be transferred onto the consumer.
So you think that is what we are paying for now?
Look, we are paying for it recklessly. The productivity in a station, if a station, for example, X, George Wiafi service station, is supposed to probably run about 100, 1,000 liters a month, or let's say 100 liters a day to be able to break even in its cost. All right. So because of that, you maybe charge 1 cedi, something like that. I'm just giving an example, or 1 peswa. All right. Then suddenly, this 100, you are sharing it with 10 people now on the same street, almost like this. What happens next? You have to, all of you will have to increase your 1 peswa to maybe some 5 peswa so that you guys can manage yourself.
Go to East Legon Airport, a typical example in a
and you look at all these things, and every politician, every party folk wants to now turn into an oil marketing company, a
make
BDC.
Money.
Charlie, my bread.
Abbas, let me bring you in as a regulator. I know that currently you are having some discussions to review this price deregulation policy and all those things. Is it looking at the build-up on the prices?
Yes. So let me say this. We haven't said that the price regulation policy has been great and has been largely good. We know that certain things
you admit that it has problems.
Better. So it has to, there's nothing perfect in this world. So we admit that it can be made better and there are challenges. As a new thing to Ghana, we realized that in implementing it, it led to other issues that we think have to be addressed. So we have the COPEC, for example, the committee that's reviewing the policy invited them last week to hear their concerns about the policy. We invited other stakeholders to also submit their position papers on the deregulation policy. The C-Board is a member of the committee. So the goal is to make sure that all these other challenges that the price regulation policy has brought about, we will be able to address them, make them better. So the PBU itself, the price board app itself, is being looked at. We are taking feedback from other stakeholders, that is the BDCs, the OMCs, the CSOs in the energy sector, to make inputs as to what they think can be done to help us improve the policy. We as a regulator, we implement what the policymaker, the policy that the policymaker makes. So having heard all of this, we are going to make these recommendations to the Ministry of Energy and indirectly to eventually to government to look at some of these concerns that are being raised and make policies that will help to improve the price regulation policy to benefit both the consumer and the player.
Let me come to one thing that is in your place: licensing of these oil marketing companies. Someone saying that for a small economy like Ghana, it's too much. Have you got into the time when the license requirements should be reviewed, up the requirement, so that we can moderate the number that is in the industry?
So the license requirements is something we are also looking at to make sure that they are such that we have everyone that applies has to strictly comply with all the requirements. So this is one of the things that the Price Regulation Committee is looking at and has identified as something the regulator must work on. So the licensing will not take out anybody who qualifies to be a player. However, we would have to make sure that it is so stringent and such that anyone...
But let me ask you one quick question. As a regulator, are you satisfied with the number of oil marketing companies in this country? The number and even the location and all those things. Don't you think it's a problem? And that is leading to shortchanging consumers when it comes to pricing of fuel.
So you should understand that before every license is granted, like I said, there are requirements. So if the requirements have been met, the licenses are granted. However,
so Abbas, sorry to cut in. Are you telling me that, sorry Abbas, just a quick one. If today you have 2,000 licenses, all these companies meet the requirement, 5,000, you're going to give the license to operate in Accra?
So we haven't. So like having said that, there are requirements that have to be met. I've said that we are also looking at how to go about the licensing. We can't just license everyone just because they want to be in. If Sandra will confirm to you that the requirements have been revised from time to time to make sure that it's not just a floodgate that anyone at all can just walk in and have it. So with the times, we revise them, we review the requirements to meet the existing situation. So that's what we are going to do. We are not going to just open the floodgates and allow anyone at all to come in. The license requirements are going to exist, but they are going to also be free to allow every Ghanaian who wants to play in the industry, who has met the requirements to get a license to operate. We as a regulator must make sure that they are playing by the rules and are meeting the requirements strictly. And that's what we are going to work on and improve. We are not saying we are doing a perfect job, but we know there's more room for improvement.
30 seconds. I need to go for a quick commercial break right now. 30 seconds.
Abbas is one of the finest brains you have at MP.
Yeah.
He's struggling because he has to struggle. Our licensing regime is weak. If we run an audit today, which I will encourage the MP and the ministry to do, commission an independent audit on compliance with standards and requirements, you will have a lot of people fail. Let me tell you something. It's very simple. You're supposed to have, I think, for OMCs, you're supposed to have up to like 7 stations. I have 7 stations, and then I have a license. Tomorrow, he wants to get it. He will come and borrow my stations to come and collect licenses. So when the guy borrows it, do I have 7 stations?
No.
Yes, still. You are going to give him license. Then they have something, another thing that you, something that is like you give back the station. Then you give back the station, he's standing there with only 1 station. And it's not that the regulator is not aware. You understand? Honestly, there is some
Magic.
renewal, some soul searching that all of us as industry people would have to undergo to deal with these things. But it comes with a certain political will
to do it.
Everybody has a classmate. Everybody knows somebody somewhere. Everybody is a full soldier.
Everybody knows Senor. It'll be a good time for us to take a quick break and be right back as we engage our guests in here. Senor, Chief Executive of Chamber of Bulk Distributors, Duncan Amoah, and also Abbas with the National Petroleum Authority. Take a quick break and be right back. Welcome back to PM Express Business Edition as we talk about fuel pricing, the way forward to avoid the persistent increment. Let me come to Duncan Amoah, Chamber of Petroleum Consumers. And when I hear some of these concerns, I ask myself, maybe we've hit the road. There's nothing that can be done.
A lot can be done.
What can be done?
You see, if you look at what is accounting for how much you pay at the pumps, there are certain things you don't have control over.
Yeah.
Like how much fuel is sold on the international market. You don't even have the muscle to decide. You don't. The cedi dollar exchange, Bank of Ghana, yes, could do some, but there could be, escalations here and there. But what is of a bigger headache to us, the Trotro people, the level of taxes you heap on petroleum products. Like I indicated.
You're still convinced that some can be taken up to bring the price down?
It is not just can be taken, must be taken out. Okay. Because, George, if you go through the price build, number 7 here, you have primary distribution margin. Which is to say you are from depot to depot, okay?
Cutting or transporting.
Moving product from one depot to the other. So that there could be product across the country.
And I'm paying for it as a consumer.
The consumer, I'm paying. It's okay.
Senor, you and I are
Everybody is paying. Okay. We all pay so that you can be able to move product and distribute across the country.
Okay.
The depots.
Okay.
Then it gets to the depot, let's say Kumasi. For the OMC to come and lift the product to its outlet, then you introduce another thing, number 11 here, called Unified Petroleum Price Fund. 29 pence worth. For what are you using the money for? You are using the money to move the product from the depot to the retail station. So we ask, could the OMC not handle this? Because I want the product at my station and say, I'm a com, right? The depot is somewhere maybe 5-10 kilometers. Couldn't I arrange a truck to pick product for me? For which reason I could factor that into my margin, right? But now you are saying that Ghanaians should pay 29 per every liter, 29 pence worth. So don't be surprised when you see so many trucks.
Because somebody's paying for their...
We are paying. We are being forced to pay this. And I think some of the inefficiencies Senor mentioned, This is where you find them. You are duplicating some of these things. If you are taking money for depot to depot, fine, fair and well. You need to move product to Tamale, it's okay. To Bupe, it's okay. But within Bupe, within a certain region, let's say Ashanti, and I'm even moving to another part of Ashanti that is 40 kilometers, should the OMC not be able to factor that into its base cost? But you come back and put it at 0.11 and say 29 pesos, I should pay, the Trotro person should pay, in Accra, we should all pay so that you can move product.
Relax. Duncan, the issue, the UPPF.
Senor,
Yes.
do you get this thing? And I stand to be educated that we are struggling. In one breath, we are trying to behave like still subsidy states. This in one breath, we want to go commercial by price deregulation policy. I see an element of a state actor trying to see how we can socialism here and also capitalism one way or the other.
Well, what we do is to subsidize our power sector through taxing the petroleum sector, downstream sector. That's what we've been doing. I don't think it's a very prudent way to really deal with this, but policy takers, the UPPF is a policy that was introduced to help have the same price across the country. The difference between a price in Accra and a price in Tamale would actually be the cost of transportation. So they try and cover it. But it's also not only. The resources required to run a station in Accra is likely higher than what it will cost in Tamale. But at the time, that was the policy thinking. Rates are fixed. The truth of the matter is that our transportation sector and its rates are overpriced. And again, inefficiencies. You have too much political activism within our transportation sector. There are a whole group of transporters who are NDC transporters and a group of people who are also considered NPP transporters.
Interesting. If
you auction our transportation today, you will shave off some 30 to 40% of the cost, which consumers are paying for. So there are a lot of inefficiencies. If you take the price stabilization recovery levy, it's supposed to help subsidize premix and also subsidize RFO. Where's our RFO going today? We've seen a hike in our residual fuel oil price. Our residual fuel oil price has been same in cedis for over 10 years or something like that. All right? And suddenly now that residual fuel oil has now become what is even used more for marine vessels, thanks to MAPO 2020, a policy driven by the UN. We have vessels coming here and finding ways to take our subsidized RFO and putting it in there. I mean, and there are a lot of... it's okay.
let me try and take the last word from Abbas and let me come to Kobe. We'll wrap up very soon. I mean, one quick thing I want you to address is the perceived concerns about some level of cartelism among these oil marketing companies, because in one breath they are quick to reduce prices, in another breath they stay prices. And now it appears that now somebody sits in this boardroom and decide that, because we think that we want to protect consumers, we are reviewing prices, we are not. What is the NPA doing about that? I should try and wrap up quickly in 2 minutes on that one, and also the way forward in the concerns that Senor and Duncan has raised about the inefficiencies in the price build-up.
Okay, thank you. So, George, about the cartel, typically our law is against the formation of cartels in the industry. If you read the NPA Act, this is clearly stated there. And so we as a regulator, we are there to make sure that does not happen. Now, how do we do that? Even though we do regulated prices, we are very much aware that it's a requirement for all the petroleum service providers, the BDCs, the OMCs, to submit their prices to us. So independently, all of them submit their prices to us. Aside that, we also do our own price projections, our own price monitoring to have an idea that even though we are not setting their margins for them, we have an idea of what margins they are using. So over time, we've noticed that their margins are very volatile. Like I gave you the example of the BDCs, they drop. Currently, they are very negative. There have been several times when the OMC's margins to have dropped. So the margins are not stable, and this is evidence of competition on the market. If a cartel is formed, I would assume that a cartel will be formed to advantage themselves as players. So an industry where you can see that their margins or their cost, the margins that they have are dropping even sometimes to levels that are not very sustainable to their own business, then I would wonder why a cartel will come together to do that against their own selves. And I've also told you that we as a regulator, we have an idea of what these margins and what this cost of supplying the products are. So if they've come together to overprice or to exploit the consumer, we would know. And that is where we also come in to make sure that the right thing is done. So we want to assure consumers and to assure you that cartels have not been formed. Their price may be the same, and that is because generally they get this price from the same source. We have a few BDCs supplying these products to all these OMCs. So they are all getting the products from the same source, and all these products are benchmarked on the same price from the world market. So that is why you are seeing that the price are almost the same. However, there are differences in the margins they are using to set their prices. So there's no cartel. Now, on the issue of the
just a quick
UPPF,
one. 30 seconds on the inefficiencies, please, so that we can run 30 seconds, please.
So on the inefficiencies, I've already said that there's no perfect system. We can always improve upon what we are doing.
Okay.
And one of the issues the Price Regulation Committee has also identified is to find ways to make sure there's efficiency in the UPPF in particular. You are aware that this UPPF, like Senor has explained, ensures that the price of petrol is the same everywhere in the country, so that our families in the north who are far away from the depots in the south will not be paying more for fuel.
Okay.
Other countries have come to Ghana to learn this UPPF and to also apply it. So what we have to do is to safeguard it and make sure that we are making it more efficient, but not to say it is not working. The efficiency will be done, and we are looking at that to make sure it is improved. The efficiency is improved.
Thank you. Senor, a minute, wrapping up, way forward.
There's another thing we've not really discussed, which is the exchange rate. The petroleum sector accounts for about maybe 15 to 18% of our import bill. So it has a major impact. And when prices, it's a dollar index thing. When the CD is depreciating, it goes up. But you have BDCs. One BDC wants 1 million. He has to talk to 10 different banks looking for the best. You create a fake demand of 100 million. You put pressure in there. We've been advocating with the Bank of Ghana, let's have an oil FX market or add us to the auction system, really defined. And something we've been working with the Association of Bankers to deliver. But we've not had good cooperation from the central bank on that particular matter yet. But we hope that as these things happen, they realize there are more efficient ways to help impact the prices. Because if BDCs will buy FX at a lower price, the assumptions they even make in there will not be as high as, and then you have transparency, visibility. And if government says, I want to intervene by making sure that the most competitive, dollar price, FX in the market should be given to the oil sector. There's a mechanism to do it, so we can help cushion things. But another thing, there needs to be a thorough review, and I really appreciate what Hamid has been doing. And Abbas, I'm really impressed with your input and your submissions today. You know, you give us hope for the future, and I just hope that we'll continue to be able to work together to get these things.
Duncan, 30 seconds. Your final words. 30 seconds.
Well, I'm also happy with the way Abbas has conducted all of this. The only thing we are not happy about is the levels of taxes on fuel price. And if you don't do anything about these taxes, I'm saying here without mincing words, in 2 weeks, fuel prices will go up again. We'll have this discussion. We'll continue to talk about it. But Finance Minister is coming back to read 2022 budget. You should look at these taxes and scrap a lot of them out because they are serving no real purpose.
I know the debate will continue in the homes and offices about the best way forward to deal with this challenge. My name is George. You have here with PM Express Business Edition, and immense thanks to my guests who had to make it here in a quite challenging time. Thank you, Senor Duncan and Abbas, joining us via Zoom. Have a great day.
Hi, this is Lexus Bill, host of Drive Time on Joy 99.7 FM. Listen, you don't have to worry if you miss Drive Time or Personality Profile. It's going to be live on our podcast page. Just log on to www.myjoyonline.com/podcast. You can listen to Drive Time, Personality Profile, and any other of your favorite shows on Joy FM on that page. You don't have to miss a show at all. Joy 99.7 FM, radio for discerning listeners.